Welcome to the Black Male Impact. Today we have as guest Mr. Lamarr Lewis. Mr. Lewis, welcome to the Black Male Impact.
How you doing, brother?
Man, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Likewise.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Lewis is the owner of Lewis Family Consulting. He also focuses on mental health. And that is a topic that we need to address, especially within our community. And he's also an author of the book, Raising an Author. Mr. Lewis, welcome to the Black Male Impact.
How are you, brother?
Man, pretty good. Yes, and please share more with the audience before we get into the conversation itself.
Indeed. Yeah, so, man, quick answer, hopefully, short answer to a long question. Long answer to a short question. I am a therapist by trade. So the work that I do is generally centered around mental wellness, mental health. I've been working with people and human services over half my life. I know I don't look too much past 22, 23, but I've been in the game for a while. And so I've worked across many cross sections of people, primarily started with youth, then transitions to adults with severe mental health issues, as well as people recovering addiction. And then I ran several programs throughout the course of my career and transitioned into consulting, which has kind of blossomed into me doing a lot of workforce development and trainings and program development centered around these soft skills, conflict resolution, communication, things like that, that in essence, as a therapist, I'm kind of already hardwired to do, is just taking what I've done over the course of my career, kind of extrapolate that across various audiences. And then as far as being an author, I wrote out of some trainings that I do with Region 4 Public Health Training Center, which is through Emory University here in Atlanta, a workbook for leaders to focus on their self-care and wellness. And then I've added to an anthology that my mother, she's the independent book publisher, Valerie Coleman. So she helped me put all this stuff together. And then she did a book with my daughter and my niece. That's the book, you're referencing. So that's that.
Oh, man,
I can keep going, bro, but there's so much more stuff I could.
No, man, no worries, man. That's pretty good. And with you working in the mental health space or just the well-being of people, that's something that we cannot overlook because people have different challenges, especially today, especially after the pandemic. A lot of people have been struggling with mental health. So I know how important it is for our mental well-being to be in the best that we can be, so we can do the things that we need to do. So I'm going to jump straight into the questions, and let's see where this conversation goes. So my first question to you is, what is the mindset that it takes to make a positive impact?
I've looked at the questions a few times and kind of pondered that, and so I'm going to do my best to answer succinctly. I could easily say growth mindset, looking at obstacles as opportunities, looking at negative situations and kind of reframing them in a more positive light so that you can learn from it and grow. I will also add to that a resilient mindset, right? One that is adaptable, because I think that once you know that life isn't always going to hand you things the way you want them, and you got to be able to adapt to whatever the circumstances are. I think that mindset for me specifically has been one that has always brought me back to focus. And so I would also say, lastly, having a vision for yourself. I don't know how to articulate. I guess a visionary mindset will be the way we could describe it, where you actually know where you're trying to go. And so when life tosses you, as it does, I'm sure you've experienced different things that come up throughout life that may deter you.
Correct.
You always have a guiding light to go back towards. Okay, well, I know this is what I'm trying to do. And one of the questions I think we'll talk about later will answer that more succinctly. But yeah, when you know where you're trying to go, it's easier to be resilient. It's easier to have a growth mindset, because everything I'm doing, whether good or bad, is going to still direct me back to the direction I'm trying to go in. So I think that, generally speaking, would be what I would say.
And I think that is important, especially if you talk about growth mindset and have direction to where we want to go. And because, as you mentioned, that on the journey, life happens. And when you have an idea of what you want out of life or where you want to go, it helps you to stay on target, even though it may be hard. But having a focus for where you want to go, I think that is really important. And especially with you working with individuals within the space that you are in, I think you come across these conversations a lot
For sure.
where people have challenges and then they're trying to figure out where to go. And so
Hmm.
I really appreciate that perspective of having an idea of what you want, which can help you to stay grounded
For
or,
sure.
continue on your path going forward. And that leads
Precisely.
me to my next question, unless you have something else that you want to share on that topic.
Say that last part again. It kind of, I don't know
No,
if it
no,
was
I
my end
was
or your end.
wondering
It
if
kind of.
you have, I thought you were going to say something else. So, but I'll just go into the next question.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's
Okay.
fine. Well, all I was going to add, brother, was that especially we talk about making an impact on other
Yes.
people, especially impact on youth. One of the things that I, stressed, my son, my kids, other people's kids who I've been a mentor to, or father, I'm a godfather, I'm an uncle, I'm a big brother, like I'm a lot to a lot of people. And what I always tell younger people is how things are now are not how it's going to be.
Right.
And though the path you want to take may, I'm saying, not be a straight path, with most success isn't linear, right? We don't get there through a straight line. There's many twists and turns we take.
Right.
But as long as you can recalibrate back to that vision you're trying to hit, it'll always work out. And I'm just a firm believer in that, in not just even professionally, but just personally in my life. A lot of decisions I made at one stage I thought would lead me this direction, put me somewhere else, but that somewhere else is where I was supposed to be. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to add that.
Yes, sir. And I think that's a great perspective. And that leads me to this question. What advice do you have for the
Mhm.
men listening and how they can play a role in creating positive change?
Ah, so this is going to sound cliche, but like my older brother always says, it's only a cliche until you live it, right?
Correct.
Do what you can.
Correct.
I think that many of us get into the thought process that, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that, so I can't do. And that's not factual, right? I'll give a good example. So my son, he started playing basketball when he was 8, which led me to coach, right? I never wanted to be a basketball coach, never was on my mind, but I'm just the type of father who's super involved. And
All right.
so being involved, he led me to coach other kids in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Well, at a point, I stopped coaching right around that 13 to 14 age, which is real critical. And so some of the parents I used to coach for asked me to be like start an AAU to basketball team.
Correct.
And so through my work experience and my experience working, I've always built stuff like as far as institutions and programs and things like that. So I never wanted to just build a basketball team. I wanted to make it bigger. So we went on college visits. We had other people come in, other black men come in and speak to the young men, along with who was involved. It was very intentional about who was involved. I had some couple people who were teachers. I had a person who was an entrepreneur. I had myself who was a therapist. So it wasn't just basketball for us. And I say that because one thing I've learned is that if you don't have a lot of money, which we didn't, what we built the team on was what some parents pay for one child to play, right? But we were able to still give them an experience that they still talk about to this day. They're all young men now, in college or working or doing things productive, and they all remember that time fondly. And for some of them, that may have been the first and only time they've been on a college campus or talked to a black man who had a college degree or whatever the case may be. So being able to provide them that opportunity, even though we may not have had the financial resources at the time, but still able to make an impact on the young man, to me is an example of just, hey, you do what you can. If you don't have enough to do all the big stuff, we used to practice outside at a park, whatever. It was free. We were able to get all the kids there. We just did what we had to do. And so I feel like a lot of men specifically feel like they can't do anything because the problem is too daunting. And in reality, it's not like that, man. Do what you can, and the young people will appreciate you and never forget. And the reason, lastly, why I use coaching as a good example is because, especially in our community, I find coaches are more than just coaches. They're father figures, they're big brothers, they're uncles, they're counselors, they're mentors, they're all kind of things. And so it's a great opportunity. And sad to say, to this point, it's easier to get a parent to bring a kid to a basketball, football, and soccer, whatever practice, than it is for them to bring them to a group counseling session. So you just kind of gotta get in where you fit in.
You know, that is so true. And man, and I really appreciate that perspective of doing what you can
Sure.
where you are. And as you mentioned, a lot of times that's how we kind of look at it. We don't have certain things, so we can't do. But as you mentioned, we all can do something. We
Sure.
just have to do what we can do. And I think
Hmm.
that's a great perspective for us as men when we want to see change within our communities, that we go out there and do what we can. As you mentioned,
Sure.
we are not only coaching when we are coaching, we are mentors, we are counselors, we are big brothers and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I think that is a great way to look at the challenges that we may see in our
Sure.
community. Don't wait for things to change or have certain level of resources given
Hmm.
to us
For sure.
for us to make the impact that we want to make. We can do what we can. And sometimes it's just to show up and
Hmm.
be there or let our presence felt in
Hmm.
those spaces. And that will be enough
Hmm.
if that's what we can do to make a difference within our
Yes, sir.
communities. And I think we have to approach life with that perspective, that mindset. If we are really committed to creating change, if we are really committed to making an impact, if we really want things to be different, we have to do what we can do. We can't do more than what we can do.
For
And I
sure.
think once we approach life from that perspective, man, a lot of things will change. And
100.
even by walking in the direction of doing the work, we will come across resources
That's
that
just what I was gonna
can,
say. Yep.
yes, sir, can help us to make an even bigger impact.
For sure. Yep, you spot on. Everything you that's what I was thinking. It's one of the things I found over time is that when you do and you give of yourself, it's just a universal law. I don't care what faith tradition you believe in or how intellect, none of that. If you give, it gets back to you somehow, some way. And I am a firm believer of that. I've seen it play out over and over again in my life. And the more I give, which is why I want to continue to expand my impact, the more I get. And it's not that I get it because I want to get it. I'm the type of person, the more I get, just the more I give. This is how I am. So, you're right, bro. Like anything you can do is always going to be rewarded in some way. Sometimes you don't know what that reward is,
Correct.
but like, as I'm sure I've done it. You probably touched thousands of lives and don't even know the impact you'll have. You might ever know the kid you touched one day may grow up to be whatever, and he'll remember that conversation he had with you.
Yes, sir.
It just happens like that, man. So for sure, I agree 100%. Like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
do what you
and
can.
that is true because I taught a student in when I just start teaching,
Mm-hmm.
and when the student got his doctorate degree, he called
Mm,
me and said, "Did you remember me?" So, and that was a couple years ago, and
mm,
you never know, as you
yep,
mentioned, you never know the impact that you're having on students or people that you encounter on your journey. Just by
indeed,
sharing an encouraging word,
indeed.
it can help them to continue on their path. It's not
Yep.
always financial.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes just to listen
Mm-hmm.
to an individual, and you'll be able to make an impact. But I really
Sure.
appreciate that perspective to do what we can where
Indeed.
we are and with
Yes, sir.
what we have. And that
Mm-hmm.
leads me to my next question.
All
How
right.
can we, as Black men, help to change the narrative?
Well, you said something a second ago, and this is another question, man, because I work a lot with black men, and that's intentional. And so I I see black men engaged. I see black men being assets to their community. I see black men taking care of their family, taking care of other people's families. I see black men stepping up and filling the gap. I see it every day. I talk to them every day. And so when you ask that, my initial response was going to be show up, like keep showing up, keep being there. But I also think as I'm verbally processing this, that I think that there's also a branding issue. You
Okay.
know what I'm saying? We just want to
Yeah.
be real. There isn't enough for whatever reason, and there's many theories we can get into about that. But for some reason, the stories of us who are trying, who are doing what we can, who are showing up, who are being there, that's not the narrative that's always told.
No.
And I think that it's incumbent upon people like ourselves and the
Correct.
work that you're doing with getting it out there. I
Yes.
think that is just as critical. And then hopefully, the narrative and the themes and popular culture will shift. Sometimes we're our own enemy, and we don't share. We're not as out there enough to show, hey, no, I'm actually here. We're here. We're doing stuff. And again, there's many reasons for that. We don't, that'd be a whole nother hour to get into,
That's
all of that stuff.
that.
But that's honestly what I think it is. And I think it takes people like ourselves and those who are in our network, because I know you know good brothers. I know
Yes.
our good brothers, and continuing to impress upon all of us that we have to be out there in some capacity. So then when the conversation is had, somebody can say, yeah, black men may be blank, but I know a brother who does da 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 da.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make sense. And now we can begin to challenge some of those narratives. I don't believe it's necessary to be combative or argumentative or get into this gender war or anything like that. That to me
Yes.
is futile and unnecessary. If you keep doing good work, it people find out. If you're doing
Correct.
good things, people, I found you because you do good work.
Yes,
You
sir.
do good, and it's this is how the game goes. And I believe that. So I believe that if you continue to do what you do, you take care of yours, and like you said, the theme of the day, you keep doing what you can, stretching yourself a little bit more, then you can challenge those narratives. I don't think it's going to be a big campaign that will change it. I think it's going to be us who are doing the work, not just externally but internally on
Correct.
ourselves.
Yes.
Us showing up day by day changes those narratives. So, and
You know,
especially in the spaces we're in where it's not a lot of us. So, for sure.
that's right, and that's a great perspective. We have to become more visible, and to be honest with you, that was one of the reasons why I started the Black Male Impact, because
Mm-hmm.
I know brothers are out there doing the work, but they are not as visible,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes we only see the same person over and over and over and
That's a
over,
fact. Mm-hmm.
and there are a lot more Black males out there
Mm-hmm.
doing great work, and
Mm-hmm.
no one know who they are.
Right.
So one of the things that I decided to do is to make sure I connect with those who are doing the work.
For
So
sure.
I become more aware of
Mm-hmm.
who out there doing the work.
For sure.
So, because that's important, because if we're not seen, no one is they're going to keep repeating the same old narrative. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to take control of the narrative that we want the world to talk about. And
For
because
sure.
there are a lot of great things that we're doing, but there are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Black men out there doing work that no one knows about.
That's right.
And so it's important that we become more visible so we can challenge the false narrative that
Mm-hmm.
has been socially constructed to have us think this particular way of ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
it keep repeating, especially with social media now. We have to counter those negative stereotypes. So I think, as you mentioned, that's one thing that we have to do is to become more visible. Start
Mm-hmm.
showing up and really acknowledge what others are doing within, especially within our network and the people that we are connected to. And I
For sure.
appreciate that, man. So I think that's one thing that we have to do more of
Indeed.
when we're thinking about creating change and changing the narrative. And
Indeed.
that leads me to my next question.
All right.
Who or what has influenced or inspired you to pursue the path that you're on?
Man, there's so many, but I'm going to narrow it down to my mentor, who I actually have his book next to me. Who he blessed me to write the forward on his book, Dr. Boyka Selassie Tway.
Okay.
I met him when I was 19 at Sinclair Community College in Dayton, Ohio. I was in the student center or whatever. He Liberian brother, long locks went all the way down his back. And he walked up on me and said, "You're going to be the president of our African American Culture Club." I'm like, "What?" My mind frame there was not nowhere in that space. You know what I'm saying? Especially at 19. And so, but that, and we did a lot of community-based work, a lot of leadership development with kids. We went into various, I don't know what they're called now, but we called them projects when I was growing up.
Okay.
A lot of areas of low socioeconomic status, just a lot of poverty, just all the issues that to come, with certain environments. We went in there, worked with kids, worked with the different high schools, and that started it. I knew, and you'll ask this question, I think you will, but I'll just preface this. That same year, 3 of my friends, they got murdered in like a month apart in the summertime. And so I'm like, how do I help? That's kind of where my mind was at. And then this kind of opened up this space to kind of be like, you can help kids. And in my mind, which I still think to this day, if I can change the life of a person, particularly a young person, by something I say, something that I do, just me showing up, being who I am, that may change their trajectory so that I don't have to go to another funeral later on. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of where the work started at for me. He definitely shaped how I think. Much of what I do now is a direct correlation to his impact on my life and the things he's poured into me over the years. Because it's not just now like, and his son is one of, well, both his sons like some of my best friends, but we still talk. I just was with one of his sons a couple days ago. So like we're really close as family. My mom helped him publish his book. You know what I'm saying? So it's deeper than just, hey, this is a good kid. Let me use him for something. Like no, like he was intentional about pouring into a young man who, and to be quite honest, at that age, I could have went either way. You
Correct.
know, I have family who is into a whole bunch of other stuff. And he said, nah, let me get him before that. And he put me on a whole nother path. And I haven't been off of it really since. So yeah, but Dr. Tway has really, he was the one, and to add to that, it wasn't, back then I was so into athletics and sports.
Okay.
That was the first time somebody saw something in me that wasn't dealing with my athletics. It was like, okay, yeah, that's all good and stuff. What about your mind? What about your spirit? What about what you're gonna do for your community? You know what I'm saying? And I never had nobody really pose that to me in that way, had anybody do that. So that was different. And that's kind of where it all started.
Okay, man. And so how long have you been in mental health?
I met him when I was 19. So that's why I
Oh,
said over half my life. I turned 41 in June. So this past June. So yeah, over 20 some years I've been working in different capacities, working with people, whether it be youth, whether it be for the government, whether it be for community-based mental health clinic, whether it be for a nonprofit, whether it be for a church, like many different facets. I've worked with people, but it started back then when I was 19.
oh man, that's great. And go back to the previous question about
Mm-hmm.
changing the narrative. That's one way we can change the narrative. Help
100%.
to put people on the path that they may not be thinking about.
Yep.
Because sometimes we are the ones who have to see in people what they don't see in themselves. So we
100%.
have to plant that seed of possibility in people when we come in contact with them, because they're so distracted, especially our younger people today, not realizing who they can become because of all the different negative things that they're seeing around them. So we have to be mindful and then decide that we, as you mentioned, be intentional
Mm-hmm.
and directing them on a path that they may not even think of. As you mentioned, a lot of times as Black men, sometimes we are only seen as athletes. And just to have someone to direct us in a different direction,
For sure.
can really position us to become who we didn't even think was possible.
For
So I
sure.
think that is important. But yes, man, I appreciate that what you share in regards to who have inspired you. If you don't mind, you can share that book again.
Oh yeah, for
So,
sure, for sure. Grown Up Boy Goes Zion, a roadmap to African psychology by Dr. Boyka S. Tway. That's his name down there.
okay.
Yeah, and it's on Amazon and all that stuff. Grown Up Boy Goes Zion. It's a good read. I said I write the forward in it. And so yeah, and you said something that's impactful. And if we were in session, I'd have told you to pause after you said.
That's
I
right.
like I like to give people the space to let it breathe. So I say let it breathe. When you said see the possibility, that was a cathartic moment for me. That was a boom. Like yeah, that's what we're doing in our own ways, right? We're
Right.
planting seeds of possibility, whether that is us showing up and being a visual example. Like,
Correct.
oh, I actually see this guy every day. I see him dressed in this suit and tie every day. That's why I want to be like that guy. He's serious about his work. I want to be like that guy. Like that's that. But
Yeah.
then who you are and your character and how you
Correct.
show up for people, that makes it even more impactful because your words and your visual and your actions, they all align. And I
Correct.
think that's something that we don't think enough about is, am I being a hypocrite to my own message? Am I telling the youth one thing, but I'm doing something different? Or am I standing on what I stand on? Even if I make mistakes, I can still be who I am. I think that planting that seed of possibility and saying, hey, you're going to make mistakes. You still can succeed. Look at me. I'm not this isn't the finished product. I didn't show up like this. I went through a process to get here. And
Correct.
sometimes kids, because they're, as you know, their developmental stage, they're not there yet. They're not supposed to see all of that. That's
Yeah.
our job to be like, hey, wait, you're not gonna see how this is gonna put you here, but let me give you an alternative just so you know there's more possibility. So
Correct.
that was just very impactful. I wanted to make sure I gave you know what I'm saying, the reverence that deserved. That seed of possibility is a very impactful statement for sure.
Yes, sir. And as you mentioned, it is just important that we walk the talk. And as we choose to be the example, because they're always watching. The next
100%.
generation is always watching.
That's
And
a
if we're
fact.
telling them one thing, we also need to let our actions, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
align with what we're saying, because we don't want to have conflicts with ourselves, especially when we're trying to make an impact. So we have to
For
be
sure.
the best examples. But as you mentioned, we all make mistakes. That's part of
Mhm.
life. We may not get it right every time, and every
Mhm.
decisions we make may not be the perfect decision.
For sure.
But once we stay within character, that's what we can do so we can be the best examples for the next generation.
For sure.
And that leads me to my next question.
Mhm.
What is your perspective on the current climate of Black men in society today? I know you kind of mentioned a little about it when we are out here doing the work, but what is your perspective on Black men today?
That I'm gonna do my best again. I'm probably give a long answer to a short question, but I would say, man, as I that's another one of the ones I had to really chew on, and I'm still chewing on. So again, I'm just verbally processing. You getting this in the moment. I'll say that a big Black men have been holding in a lot for a long time. I think that with the advent of social media, and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and things like that, that more men are given the opportunity to say things
Correct.
that they probably that we might say to our friends or say with at the barbershop or say within our own close circles, if then, right? Because one of the things I do, I specialize in sex therapy, so I deal with men in a whole different space as well, and many Black men have been sexually assaulted. Many Black men have been emasculated in their relationships. Many Black men are struggling with past traumas and things they've went through, whether it be with the church, whether it be with their parents, whether it be with their environment, their community. Like many Black men are just have been dealing with stuff. We've been taught, especially generation I'm in, to kind of deal with it and don't say nothing. You just suck it up, keep going. But I think
Perfect.
with the advent of social media, now brothers are saying stuff,
Correct.
and that's good to an extent. One thing that one of my other mentors used to tell me is that there's nothing worse than a little bit of knowledge, because most people get a little bit, think they know a lot, and they start
Correct.
talking about it. And I think that is where we have an issue, because a platform like this, where you reaching out to experts or people in the community who are doing things and have expertise in certain fields, there are some people who speak in the spaces that we're in, but may not have that same experience or same
Correct.
knowledge or know-how. And it's not to say that they shouldn't speak, but then they become the narrative again, back to the original one of the questions you asked earlier.
Yeah.
And so I think that the state of Black men is shaped by that now. The social media push and and all these things that are happening that may or may not be an accurate depiction of real life.
Correct.
And I think that for me, I see a lot of hope and I see a lot of work to do.
Correct.
And one thing I've learned as an older man that I didn't understand as a younger man, is that I can't do it all.
Correct.
So I'm intentional about doing what I can in my space where I'm good at, where I'm gifted at, where I'm supposed to be, and I leave other areas to other folks. And
Correct.
let's collaborate, let's build. Hey, you in education, I'm in mental health. I'm sure there's some synergies there. How can we build something together? I bring my best, you bring your best, and we build something from there versus me coming into your space and you coming into my space. You know what I'm
Correct.
saying? Like I'm just like, let's just build instead of trying to compete. And I think that that is another and another one of my mentors, Kevin Powell, said this too. I never heard it till he said it. We get into these real unnecessary competitions with each other
Correct.
and these real petty kind of back and forths. Like instead of big up in Doctor Richard Cross for what he doing, he ain't doing nothing special. He ain't did it. No, we don't need that. We trying to build. And
Right.
and so I'm answering all this again in real time to say that there's a my perspective is, again, there's a lot of hope. The younger generation, man, they're some of the most gifted, brilliant young people ever. And they're coming up in a time where they have access to things that our forefathers, our ancestors, even us didn't even know was going to be a thing. And the way they think is so accelerated with certain aspects. However, other ones are very hard, or they're a lot slower to develop. Some of these social interactions, things like that. You talked about the pandemic and COVID earlier, that had a direct impact on many young people, everybody really, but
Yeah.
definitely young people. And I say that because we won't know the effects of it until probably 20, 30 years away when we look back like, man, the pandemic messed up a bunch of people.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? And so with that being said, there's a bunch of areas to grow.
correct.
But like the great Cornel West says, things are relatively hopeless, but I always have hope. I still have hope. I still believe that brothers, my perspective, that we can figure it out.
Correct.
I firmly believe. I do a men's group every Thursday for Black men wellness and support, and brothers from all across the country, again, doing good work. And what I always say is that I just believe in us together. We can accomplish whatever we want to accomplish together. It's when
Correct.
we're separate or when we're fighting or when our ego gets involved that great things falter, great things diminish. So I just believe in us. And so that's my perspective. Like I believe we can get it done. We got some work to do, but we have the tools already to get it done. We have enough resources. We have enough intellectual capital, enough spiritual capital, enough emotional wherewithal and work to do. We got it. We just gotta, figure out how to come together and get it done.
Man, you said a lot in the response, which is really good. From why I said you said a lot, because that could be unpacked to take us forever to talk
Mm-hmm.
about. From us working together, from us realizing that this is not about a competition. This is about finding where we can have the synergy to work together to create the change. And you also mentioned that, yes, we are out here doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And if we want to get or make a bigger impact,
Mm-hmm.
to find who we can connect with and
Mm-hmm.
make that impact, because there's no sense that trying to do what someone else is doing just because you want to do it or think you
For
can
sure.
do it when that's not your strength.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we realize that and see how we can make a bigger impact, more things will change.
For sure.
But
100%.
I think we're still suffering from the distrust amongst each other, where we think, oh, this person is going to take what's mine, and this person is going to take what's mine. But
Yep.
at the end of the end of it all, we still don't
Mm-hmm.
make the progress that we should make,
For sure.
because again, we can't do everything by ourselves. We
That's
need
right.
the help of other people. We
That's right.
need the support of other people. We need the
Mm-hmm.
thought process of
Mm-hmm.
other people, because you may think one way because of your experience, but you may need someone else's perspective so you can
Mm-hmm.
navigate the journey better. So we have a lot of work to do, of course, but as
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned, man, we have the intellectual property. We have everything we need
Yep.
to make the impact that we want to make the progress that is possible.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to find a way to see how we can work together
For sure.
to make that difference that we would want to see in society. Which leads me to my next question.
Mm-hmm.
And this is somewhat related to what you just mentioned, but I'm still going to ask the question:
For sure.
what change do you want to see in general amongst Black men? What change do you like to see? I know you talk about the collaboration. I know you talk
For
about
sure.
what we can do, but what change would you like to see?
I would like to see Black men, and I'm saying this with the caveat that I know Black men who do this. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. And I also don't want to make it seem like there's an elitist tone to what I'm saying. I come from the grind. I come from work. I come from hardworking people. I'm sure you do. We all, I don't never want to make it seem like because I have education or I got this or I got that I'm better, right? And I share that because that will lead me to my point. I want us to lead with love.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that specifically, brother, is if you do your best and you lead with love, the differences don't matter. The where you come from doesn't matter. What fraternity you in doesn't matter. What gang you in doesn't matter. What side of town you in doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters if you lead with love. Because when I lead with love and I love my brother, I don't want to do anything to hurt him. I want him to win. I want him to be successful. I want him to grow. I want him to evolve. I want him to be the best man he can be, because then him being the best man he can be makes my job easier. I don't
Correct.
have to fill in another person's gap. That's something that I think a lot of brothers don't get. Well, if I don't do, I'm gonna use an example that I experienced personally, and I know many of us have. Okay, well, I'm not gonna be a dad because I don't like the mama no more. Well, at some point, some brothers are gonna have to fill your gap, which is great, right? What resources did that take from his family or from him doing what he needs to do? He got to step up in your space, whether that be a brother, an uncle, a caseworker, a therapist, a teacher, a principal, whatever. And part of that is what we do. However, if we all do what we're supposed to do and do our part, we can lighten the load for other people.
Correct.
If we get out of this kind of individualistic perspective and really believe in the collective and all of us pitching in, like you said a second ago, bro, we'll grow exponentially.
Correct.
It's just that for whatever reason, there's so many different reasons. Like I said, that's a whole nother conversation. Why brothers move, like you said, in that spirit of distrust. And some of it's justified. I get it. You know what I'm saying? That being said, when we look at the big picture, how much has that distrust cost us as a people? If we to lead and we don't trust each other, how far have we been set back for that reason alone? And I think that, for me, if we could just lead with love, and that means leading beyond that distrust, some of that hate, some of that anger and frustration, and lead beyond that and say, and take a step further, leading beyond that pain and saying, okay, look, beyond all this other stuff, you my brothers, I'm trying to win, you trying to win, this is the goal, let's figure it out. And sometimes it is a hard conversation. Sometimes that is, I grew up in the era, sometimes you gotta go outside and get it off your chest, you know what I'm saying?
That's right.
I ain't advocating violence. I'm just saying I grew up in a different time where we could fight and then be friends afterwards once we resolve it how we gotta resolve it.
Correct.
And again, I'm not advocating violence. I'm just saying that sometimes there are difficult conversations, difficult situations you got to work through with a person. If it's worth working through, work through it. Sometimes you got to let somebody go. And I understand that too, more as I mature. You can't keep everybody with you. Some people you can't go with you on certain parts of your journey. That doesn't mean you don't love them any less. It just means that, hey, we can't go.
Correct.
That being said, to the point, if it's worth the conversation, have it. If the person has done something that offends to the point that it requires a separation, let's talk it out. Again, however ugly it has to get, as long as we know the point of this conversation is for us to get better and get back to where we're trying to go, which is helping our community fixing the stuff we can fix, to have it. Hey man, you took my idea. Hey man, that hurt me. I didn't really like how you did that. That really got on my nerves. You know what I'm saying? I want you to know that. Hey bro, that wasn't my intent. My bad. I didn't mean it like that. I just was a good idea. I just had to make a move on you. You're moving too slow. And just keep going until you get to where you got to get to. And this is the real conversations that people avoid having. Again, my ego, my pride won't let me just say, hey, brother, my bad. Nah, man, just go ahead. Just, like I said, lead with love, lead with compassion, lead beyond the pain, lead beyond your ego. Because I believe everybody leads, especially black men. I think we just innately lead, whether we want to or not. We just get put in position to lead. And the best of us stand firm in that and just keep going. That being said, if there's opportunity to pull somebody up, take it. It ain't about, oh, he gonna come and take my spot. Nah, man, come on, bro, I got you. You know what I'm saying? Let me put you up on this, because I didn't know. Nobody did that for me. There was nobody to do that. There weren't people in spaces like me and you have been in, I'm sure. You could say, hey, let me mentor you and show you what to do when you get in this space. So if I see somebody got potential, want to get in that space, hey, bro, let me holler for a second. Hey, man, this is what you need to do, man. Don't worry about that. Focus on this. Bam. I got you. And because look, I ain't gonna be here forever. I need somebody to take my spot. So look, I got you. As long as you got a question, come holler at me. And that sometimes comes from people older than me, where I've had to give them information that they didn't have in certain spaces. So, leading with love, man, leading beyond the pain, leading with compassion, you know what I'm saying? And being able to say, hey, getting beyond the distrust, like you said earlier, what's the big picture? Let's focus on the big picture. If it's worth the conversation, let's have it and move beyond that.
And just to sum it up with what you have said, lead with love. Because if we approach life like that, man, we cut out all the things that will hold us back.
For sure.
Because I believe, as you mentioned, if you become successful, right, I think it's easier for me to become successful. So I shouldn't have a problem with you becoming successful.
For sure.
So, and that's what we have to realize, that if I support you and you become successful, then it makes it easier for me. And also, as you mentioned, that if we're up, it's our responsibility. I do believe that we should lift as we climb. We should pull each other up. We don't have to have any particular reason. It should be just a natural part of who we are to lift each other up as we go on this journey. Because if we don't do it, we can't expect other people to do that for us if we're not doing it for ourselves. We have to be that type of person that, what, man, I see my brother over here, or even our sisters, whatever it is, but see them making progress, see them contributing and want to make a difference. If I have the opportunity to bring that person up, I think we should. But just go back to what you said, man, and lead with love. If we approach life like that, we'll solve a lot of the problems that can help us to make the progress that we need to make and the impact that we need to make. And that leads me to my next question. What was a pivotal moment in your life?
I was waiting on this question to come. If you all notice when you watch this, I'm not dressed as flying snazzy as Dr. Cross. That's intentional. I want to show y'all something, and this will answer his question and answer y'all's question. So I'm gonna pull my camera down just a little bit. All right. So the shirt says "Put in work, Rob Strange, rest in power, Robert Doc Strange." All right, everybody see it. Move back. So why is that important? Well, 2016, July 2016, I got a call from one of my friends that this brother, my friend, died by suicide. And that moment shifted everything for me. At the time, I was working in a program working with people with severe mental illness. And I was, my goal at the time was to develop a nonprofit to work with the unhoused population. It's a big thing in Atlanta. I was working on, I had got my board together. I was, getting all my ducks in a row. When I finished my master's, I knew that's what I was going to do. I'm going to start this nonprofit and do my thing. And then my friend, died by suicide. And I had to sit with that because I'm working in the field. I'm working with people. I just talked to them a few weeks prior, and it just like really threw me for a loop. I just couldn't. And I worked with people who were dealing with like suicidal ideations and suicidal attempts in my work before, especially working with youth and stuff like that. But I never had anybody that I knew of close to me who left Earth that way, right? And so I didn't have the same desire to do the work with the homeless, unhoused. And it's not that I didn't want to do it. I stopped caring. It's just I realized, and now even saying this out loud, it makes even more sense. I realized there was something else happening that I wasn't seeing.
Correct.
And when I began to again expand my scope, which is something else I would share with anybody, begin to open your mind up, open your perspective up, and see. You begin to see and hear other things that brothers are wrestling with and struggling with, and they didn't have outlets. And to this distrust thing you mentioned earlier, which is another theme I think of this conversation, I don't feel like he trusted certain people enough to share what he was really dealing with internally, because he knew he had friends like myself and other ones who would like pull up on him, come check on him, come do whatever. And maybe that's not what he needed. I can't speak to any of that. This is me kind of speculating, but my point is that made me back to when I told you my friends that got killed in that summer. Okay, what am I missing? What can I do to hopefully shift that for other Black men so that they don't have, again, they ain't got to go through what I went through in having to really wrestle with this. And it made me learn more about suicide and suicide prevention, some of the causes, some of the things that I kind of, in our work, sometimes you really pay attention during training, and sometimes you kind of like, just talk to somebody, be out. Like, really always take certain parts of it seriously until it directly impacts you. But also made me be more intentional about checking in on my brothers when they're going through hard times. In general, really, I'm always that kind of person. But when they're going through difficult times, again, it shifted my focus to the work that I do, why I want to do a lot of work and continue to do a lot of work with Black men of all ages. Because, you spend time working with youth, you don't think about those kids grow up.
That's right.
And if you can't get them when they're young, they're going to grow up to be men with some stuff going on. Who's going to help them? So trying to be a conduit and a bridge in that way just really shifted how I looked at the work that I did. And it's not that I looked at it poorly or I wasn't doing good work. That's completely untrue. But it more so made me reevaluate what my priorities needed to be and what I could do. And also, like I said, it didn't hit me till just now. Maybe even my interventions could help somebody from ending up being unhoused because of the life stress. Some people, they don't necessarily die by suicide or attempt suicide as the only. There's other methods of people just giving up.
Correct.
And that is one of them. I've talked to people who just like, man, this happened. I just said, forget it. I'm just going to live on the streets. That was it. There was nothing deep about it. They just didn't want to handle life the way life was given to them anymore. And course, that's not everybody, but I share that because I think that for me, that was very impactful, and it's still impactful to this day because it's still a stigma around it in our community. It's still in what suicide looks like. It might not be a person using a gun and shooting himself. It may not just be somebody pills or cutting their wrist. They may stop taking their diabetes medication,
Yep.
right? They may have been sober from a drug for a period of time, and they take a drug that they know can kill them, an overdose like that. So they really weren't trying to just get high; they were trying to take themselves out. So they take a certain dose, knowing that was going to be the outcome. And there's so many other ways that you don't think about that people just do these things. And for those of us who, back to my initial statement, you asked me about a mindset, may think differently and just not. And I don't get, I don't understand. You're not going to, but that ain't the point. The point is being there when a person is in need, helping them to your, again, you phrased it beautifully, brothers. Planting seeds of possibility.
Right.
The world is better with you here. We want you to be here. You provide value. You know what I'm saying? I know what happened in your past, but your future can be better. Like all that kind of talk that some people never get, they never hear, or they don't, or what I find they don't hear from the person they want to hear it from. So that type of stuff, man, like I said, I could keep going, man, but I hear stories of men all the time who have experienced deep trauma and they just never deal with it. So they drink themselves to death, or they smoke themselves to death, or they just don't take care of themselves. They fracture all their personal relationships because they just can't deal with the pain.
Correct.
That circumstance highlighted that for me. I would have probably never thought about it in that way until that happened. And I don't I try not to minimize situations like that. But what I will say is that that situation, I know, as painful as it was and still is, I have taken that experience and it has propelled me to keep going and doing the work that I do and showing up for my brothers because that's what I feel like he would want me to do. You know what I'm saying? So I believe in my ancestors. I just don't believe my ancestors are some people from way far back. Like these are people who I've touched, who I know, who I believe I owe a debt of gratitude to. So I do my best to honor them by doing the work that I do.
Yeah, man. And then sorry to hear that as well,
Thank
but
you.
that sometimes put us on a path to make a greater impact. Because
For
sometimes
sure.
we think we are seeing what's happening, but it helps us to gain different perspective and look at
Hmm.
life differently. Because
Hmm.
sometimes we miss some things that we're not realizing, but situations help us to look deeper
For sure.
within what's happening around us, so we can make a greater impact. As you said,
For
your
sure.
friend may be the person that wants you to reach more people
Hmm.
because of his situation, or within yourself. That's how you feel to be more impactful. But just to go back to just the whole situation, sometimes
Hmm.
we as men, we sometimes don't want to be vulnerable,
Yep.
talking about the challenges that we experience and the hardship that life
Hmm.
present at times. Just to have people that we can talk to about the challenges really can make a whole lot of difference.
For sure.
But we have to develop the trust with each other so we can share those challenges, so we don't think we have to carry the burden by ourselves.
Yep.
And so I appreciate sharing that experience,
For
and
sure.
just that what happened and stuff like that. I know the listeners will appreciate it. And even if men out there listening and struggling,
Mhm.
always find people close to you that you believe will listen
For sure.
to talk about the challenge. So I really appreciate you sharing that. So
No
that leads
problem.
me to my next question.
All right.
What life lesson have you learned late in life that you believe is important and can benefit this current generation?
You just said it. You don't have to do it by yourself.
Correct.
I think had I had that awareness as a younger man, I would have probably avoided certain situations. Of course, situations put me where I'm at. I want to make sure I'm not like sad or anything like that about the way things have played out in my life. I'm just simply saying that I took a lot of weight on a lot of what I would say unnecessary burden because I wanted to go it alone and be a rugged individualist, just figure it out, all that kind of stuff. And as I've matured, one of the things, there's actually two lessons tied up in one, but one of the things I've learned is that you ain't got to do it by yourself, bro.
Correct.
There are people who are good at certain things, and like I tell people all the time, I don't have no problem paying. I may not be able to pay everybody what they want all the time, but hey, I might say, man, work with me. I'm a man of the people. I'm getting my money up. I'm getting there,
That's
but I
right.
always believe in paying people. I believe that because I'm not there yet, don't mean I ain't gonna get there. I believe in paying people for their time and their expertise. If there's something again I'm not good at, or I'm okay at, but they're great at, like, why keep being mediocre when I could just pay somebody to do this? Like I tell them, I can do work around the house, but that ain't my gift, and that ain't the best use of my time. When there's somebody that's their thing, let me go ahead and get somebody who does this. I can focus on continuing to hone my craft and go get money or whatever it is I need to do, bring resources back, and go from there. Doesn't make any sense to me. And with that being said, the other lesson with that, tied into that, is worrying about what I can control. Many of the things, to this added pressure and burdens I put on myself growing up, are things I can do nothing about.
Correct.
From something as minor as not being 6'6", genetically that was never going to happen.
That's right.
But I was fast because that genetically made sense.
Yeah.
So I spent so much time focusing on stuff. I'm just using that as a silly example, but it's a real thing. Like when you're young, like, what if you're 6'6"? Focus on what you got, the strengths that you do have, and build out from there. I think that's the biggest thing. Those two things, again, they're interrelated, so I don't want to separate them. If you know what you can control, right, then you spend time focused on that, and then I know, okay, I need help with this. I can't control that. I don't have enough money. Let me find some people with some money. But if you were taking on things that you can't control, then that forces you don't know where to get help from, because you're doing stuff that's out of your scope. You know what I mean? So I think those two things interrelated, knowing what you can control, focusing on the things I can control, and the stuff I can't control or I'm not as good at, either try to build up or find somebody who that's already their strength, learn, and then from there elicit help. I don't have to, like I said, I got to. If you want to help, hey, yeah, come on. Yep. I used to be like, nah, man, I don't need. Nah, man, I don't need. Nope. Yep. Go on. Won't help, because the work is too big for me to do by myself. Work too
That's
big
right.
if you do by yourself, and whoever else, no matter how great and mighty and intelligent and gifted we are, the work is too big. So we got to elicit other great people to help us knock it down and make it something we can work on. So those, like I said, those two interrelated things, I think, are the two biggest lessons, I would say. Biggest one, whatever lesson that I learned as I matured. Yeah.
Yes, and those are two valuable lessons. We can't focus on the things that we cannot control. We have to control what we can control, and also take the help when we can get the help. Don't think, and I find this happen not just with black males a lot, especially when they're a student and stuff. They don't want to ask for help. It's like we learn this thing not to ask for help, or something is wrong with asking for help and
Right.
stuff like that. So I appreciate you sharing those as reminders, because on
Mhm.
this journey we need the help, and we
Mhm.
have to realize that there are things that we cannot control, and if we focus on those things, we put additional burden on ourselves, and
Yep.
the additional burden just kind of wear us out, or we don't
Mhm.
get to do the things that we are capable of doing. So,
For sure.
and I appreciate sharing that reminder. It's a great reminder. So before I ask my final question,
Mhm.
where can the listeners find you and help support the great work that you're doing to make a difference?
Well, first, thank you for considering the work great. I appreciate that. I would say, man, you can go to my website,
Okay.
www.lewisfamilyconsulting.net. I have a contact page there. You can reach out to me there. Or lewisfamilyconsulting@gmail.com. Just email me. I'm on LinkedIn too, Lamarr with two R's, Lewis. You'll see me with this beard doing like this. That's me. So
That's
yeah, any of those ways, man, just find me. I'm not hard. You Google Lamar Lewis two R's or Lamar Lewis therapist, I probably will come up. So any of those ways. My website, www.lewisfamilyconsulting.net. You can email me at lewisfamilyconsulting@gmail.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, Lamar Lewis, and all my little acronyms and credentials and stuff. But again, if you look for Lamar Lewis and Wittenberg University, you'll see me looking like this pretty much, and that will come up, and that's how you can find
okay. So it's Lamarr with two R's. That's right.
Please, because my mama get mad if you only put one. I promise.
That's right. That's right. That's right. But I'll definitely put ways to connect with you in the
For sure.
description.
For
So
sure.
whenever time they listen, they can reach out to you, because I do believe what you're doing is great work,
Thank
especially in
you.
the mental health space. I
Thank you.
think you cannot stress that too much,
Mhm.
especially with all the things that we have been hearing, and especially when it comes to mental health, especially
For sure.
within our community. It's something that is important, and even more important now, when we are becoming a little bit more vulnerable to talk about our challenges. So I
For
think
sure.
it's just important. But I'll definitely put it in the description so they can
Indeed.
reach out to you, and
For sure.
for whatever reason, further the conversation, or
Indeed.
just to get some guidance when it comes to their mental well-being.
For sure.
So my final question
Mhm.
is, what impact do you want to have on the world?
This will probably be the simplest answer of all the answers I've given. So I appreciate you for allowing me to verbally process and express myself, because I have to talk it out and I can see it while we talk, which is a blessing. But some people they don't want to ride with me on it. You try to figure it out. But I will say, my lifelong mission, and this is in my bio. This is just me. Is to leave the world better than when I got it. That's the impact I want to have. I want to leave the world better than when I got it. However that looks, whether that be raising my family in a way that they have a lasting impact and do positive things in the communities, in the world, whether that be showing up for my godson's football game when he don't expect me to come, or that be me spreading my message and going to different places across the country and speaking on these various topics that people don't want to talk about, even in professional settings. Whatever, doing this men's group that I do, like I feel like I'm walking in my mission every day and making the world a little bit better. And that's all I'm trying to do, brother. No more, no less. Want to make the world a better place.
Man, that's good. That's what we got to do.
Yes, sir.
Make this place better than we found it.
Yes,
Just
sir.
to impact the lives of others in
Mhm.
whatever way possible. But make sure our impact is positive.
Mhm.
Leave a positive impression or a lasting impression
Mhm.
on the people we encounter.
Sure.
Mr. Lewis, man, this conversation was great. It was great having you here on the Black
Likewise.
Male Impact. And,
Great
I
to be here,
hope
brother.
this is not the last conversation we have, because we may have to talk again around mental health. Are we going to have maybe a deeper dive
For
into
sure.
mental health? But, man, it's a pleasure having
For
you
sure.
here on the Black Male Impact.
Brother, I appreciate the opportunity humbly. I'm so glad we were able to connect via social media, right?
That's
That
right.
it turned into a positive to the word we've been talking about today, collaboration.
Yes.
And brother, anytime you need me to talk, you just hit me up. I have no problem running my mouth. I'm a
That's
preacher's
right.
kid. Hey, I'm with it. You tell you, hey, let's talk about this. I'm ready, man. So just whenever you're ready, brother, I'm here to do the work. I appreciate what you do. I applaud what you do. I see what you're doing. Keep going. Your model and your perspective is important and
Thank you.
vital to what we're trying to do. Like I said, you're not in this by yourself, brother. We in it together now. I got your back. Let's get it.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. And
Indeed.
listeners, as always, our goal is to bring guests that we believe will make a positive impact and share insights and knowledge that we believe is beneficial. So please continue to support us here on the Black Male Impact as we continue to do our best to make a positive difference. Thanks for being here with us on the Black Male Impact.